Now we're going to join the MP for the area. Charlie Angus is the NDP member as well as the ethics critic for the NDP. He joins us now from Cobalt, Ontario. Charlie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on the show.
I want to begin here with the fire that started in Attawapiskat. What do you know about that?
Your viewers will probably remember the shocking footages back in 2011 of the people, the famous Attawapiskat housing crisis, people in tents, people in unheated sheds. At that time, there were 80 to 90 people living in these makeshift construction trailers that had been brought in to deal with an earlier collapse of infrastructure, as you had pointed out at the beginning of the show. Unfortunately, the response at that time, we got the people out of the tents, but people have been living in these trailers. So they look like long, narrow hallways with basically holding cells where young families are living. There's about 4 toilets, a couple of showers, and 1 kitchen facility for 80 to 90 people. And unfortunately, power was knocked out earlier this week from a huge storm that knocked out power in the community. Again, substandard infrastructure. And people were trying to stay warm and had candles. Fortunately, nobody was hurt because that would have been a real catastrophe for our community.
So is that confirmed then, Charlie, that this fire was started by candles in the trailer?
What I've been told by Chief Teresa Spence and various councillors and people I know on the ground, it seems to be the candle. I'm sure there's going to still be an investigation, but it appears that this was the domino effect of the storm hitting the power system, people losing power, losing heat, losing lights, and then the families trying to stay warm, and someone had left a candle in one of the rooms and it caught fire.
Now, the result of this fire is that, as we said, 70 people are going to be evacuated. In fact, there's no other housing in Attawapiskat for them. So to our understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, flights will start midday today to get them to Kapuskasing, which is far away, but I guess a more larger, nearer community to them. Tell us more about this evacuation effort and how that will actually roll out.
Well, we're really pleased that the town of Kapuskasing stood up so quickly and offered help. I know their teams on the ground are going to be excellent. The problem for the community, being evacuated causes a lot of trauma. Young children, there's some pregnant mothers, I understand, some elderly people who get dislocated from their families. They don't know how long they're going to be away. It is relatively nearby in Northern Ontario terms, but in probably the rest of Canada would seem like a very, very, very far distance because there's no road connecting the community. People don't know how long they're going to be out. So I know there's some trepidation from some families on the ground who don't want to leave their community, even though they have no place to go. But we're hoping to have the flights going out this afternoon.
Now, you were alluding to it before, the fact that this is not the first time we've heard about Attawapiskat's housing crisis. It was, of course, national headlines a couple of years ago. What happened, Charlie? It seemed to be housing and some form of housing was being brought up to the community. Did that get pushed to the back burner?
I think, again, it's not just Attawapiskat. All across Northern Canada, we have huge backlogs of housing, major infrastructure problems. In all my communities in the far north, I've had, the complete collapse of sewage systems, water systems, housing crisis. And it's always the Band-Aid solution. So in 2011, we almost had to, it seemed like we were going to war with the government just to get 22 trailers moved up to get people out of tents. That's not, considering what Canada can do around the world, that isn't a huge request. But the real issue is long-term housing. There are, contrary to what people might think, there's a lot of people working in Attawapiskat. We've got people working at the diamond mine, people working on the winter roads. And people are willing to pay rent, people are willing to get mortgages, but things move so slow through the federal government, through Indian Affairs, that this chronic backlog just gets worse and worse every year.
That said, if there's a backlog of housing in Attawapiskat,
yes.
This 70 people being evacuated out, when can they come back home, do you think?
Well, there's much more damage on the one side of the trailer, so that could be a month or two. The other side, maybe a couple of weeks. But again, it's on the band's finances are always stretched. We just had earlier this month, or last month, we had the pipes break in the high school and flood some of the classrooms, so the kids are not going to school right now. That's causing a lot of stress and a lot of stress on the financial burdens of the band to try and deal with remediating a high school and also now having to remediate the trailers. And to be quite frank, nobody should be going back into those trailers. They're not livable. They're not. They would be condemned anywhere else in the country. So part of me wants them fixed so we can get people back in their community, but part of me saying there's no way these people should be sent back in, and there's still fire traps. There'll always be fire traps, and families shouldn't be living in them.
So what do you do now as the local MP for the area? What is your course of action?
Well, I think we need again to start rethinking how housing is done. The government did give some money last year, put in about 10 houses. Earlier, we had a plan through CMHC, through people paying through rent, to actually build a new subdivision. For whatever reason, the government ixnayed that plan. I think we need the province as well at the table. We need to look at creative solutions. The people in the community, they want to pay rent, they want proper housing, and they don't want to leave their lands because this is where they've grown up, this is where their families are, and there is potential of future work as the diamond mines grow, but we need all the players at the table to say, let's stop the blame game here and let's get down to business.
Charlie Angus, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.